eat less and work out more is the worst advice. It's not working for me, and I apologize to any patient who I've ever told, but I don't actually ever think I told patients that, because I think innately I was like, if that worked, we wouldn't have the rates of obesity that we have. So anyway.
Welcome to another episode of What They Don't Tell Us podcast. With this series, I aim to introduce you to the people who can share some of life's most valuable lessons and skills that we should have learned back in school before many other things, but a lot of us haven't. Through these conversations, I aim to shift and shape mindsets. I'd like to shed light on the unspoken, and above all, I hope to spark your curiosity enough to be able to find the courage to unlearn where needed. I hope you would listen with an open mind or question with the hope of understanding. Today, we're diving deep into conversation about what they don't tell us about women pushing their late 30s, 40s, and 50s. My guest for today is Dr. Alicia Robbins, a board-certified OBGYN and board-certified lifestyle medicine MD. She completed medical school and residency at the Icahn School of Medicine in New York. She was a full-time faculty at Mount Sinai Hospital, as well as being on the board of admissions. She received several teaching awards during her time there, and after realizing there was a need for more personalized guidance for women, she found the Elm-a boutique practice in Connecticut, which specializes in perimenopause, menopause, hormone therapy, weight management, longevity, and lifestyle medicine. She started her own practice when she realized how underrepresented women in their 40s and 50s feel, and she became so passionate about helping women feel their best in midlife. She believes that simple lifestyle changes work to improve quality of life. And without further ado, please do welcome my next guest, Dr. Robbins.
Hi, thank you.
You're good?
I'm doing great. So nice to see you, Tracy.
It's so nice to see you too. I'm so glad we're talking about this subject because it has become, for myself as well, a big interest to really understand a woman's body. Why our hormones act the way they do. Why do a lot of us struggle with losing weight? Why do all of us blame certain reasons for our weight loss not or weight gain, for that matter, fluctuating, but we really don't understand the basics and the core of it. So I thought that I could bring you, an absolute professional in the subject matter, to kind of bounce this conversation, like we could talk about this in detail, really be as candid and open as possible, because I know the frustration. I've felt the frustration. I'm sure you have, that we don't understand what is going on with us. And unless we do the research ourselves and spend the time and ideally find out the truth from the experts, which is quite hard to find really, unless the experts are continuously learning about nutrition. It's difficult. So that's why I chose you, because I know that not only do you have your background in medicine, but I know that you continue to learn a lot about nutrition and how much that impacts our bodies as women. So thank you so much for coming on to this chat.
Yes, my pleasure. This is all my... Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is your area. I know.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it, and let's get into the nitty gritty so that everybody can kind of grasp as much as they possibly can from this conversation. So to start with, let's talk about perimenopause. I know that not a lot of people know what that is. Most people know what menopause is, but what is perimenopause? Let's get into that first.
Yes, great question. So just to be clear, menopause means that you're 1 year with no period. Your ovaries have stopped secreting estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, essentially. Perimenopause, although the word has the word menopause, it doesn't mean that you're near menopause. It doesn't mean that you're going into menopause earlier. It just represents the hormonal changes that can happen years before menopause. And so the easiest way to think about it is your 40s, because these hormonal changes can last up to a decade. They can even start in a woman's late 30s. So basically, it's not like you wake up the night before your 50th birthday and you're like, oh, I'm in menopause. No, what starts to happen is in your, early 40s, and this varies from woman to woman, but essentially your ovaries are aging and they stop secreting estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone the way they were in your 20s, for example. And so women do feel clinical symptoms, can feel clinical symptoms of this. So these hormone fluctuations, they're overall decreasing, but not in a linear fashion, kind of up and down, fluctuating, but overall going down until you're in menopause when everything is just low. There's essentially, very minimal estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone at that point. So it's
when
that
you're saying
sort of
fluctuation, what's the feeling? What do people get? What are the symptoms?
Yeah.
Even
Okay. So
early,
symptoms are
like in
going to
their
be,
30s, like you're saying, which is
yep.
quite interesting.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we talk about and that I notice in my patients is interrupted sleep. So they can fall asleep, but you wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. and you can't go back to sleep when you've always been a good sleeper. So sleep becomes impacted. That's because progesterone and estrogen are really important for sleep. Some women even, and this, by the way, can all happen with a regular period. So a lot of people think, oh, you can't have these symptoms if you're still having a regular period, but that's not true. You can have interrupted sleep, you can have brain fog, you can have hot flashes, you can have night sweats, you can have decreased energy and fatigue, decreased libido. You can have painful intercourse from vaginal dryness just because decreased estrogen. Estrogen is important for our skin integrity and elasticity. And so, and then weight gain for sure. Like estrogen helps with your insulin sensitivity. And so as estrogen is decreasing, that's why often as women go through menopause, they get this sort of midsection weight gain and more visceral fat. As they're going through menopause. In addition, so those are the symptoms. I would say those are the main symptoms.
So how would you classify that? That's definitely. I mean, would you say anyone who's facing these symptoms, it means that they're facing premenopause, or could it just be that maybe they're eating wrong, maybe that their hormones are fluctuating because of their lack of nutrition? I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe. Is it possible? Is it always labeled as premenopause in that case, or
no? I want to just
do it
clarify.
to yourself? Sorry, maybe my question wasn't clear. Can you do it to yourself if you're not eating the right stuff and if you're not taking care of your health? Can you kind of trigger that premenopause to be happening because your hormones are not in balance?
No, you can't kind of create, and it's perimenopause because premenopause suggests that you're right before menopause, but perimenopause just means you could be 40. You're not that close to menopause, but you can't. No, it's all about your ovaries and how your genetics and how fast the follicle and the eggs on your ovaries are aging, and because as we age in our 40s, we have less and less follicles that secrete these hormones. So you can't. But I will say these symptoms overlap with a lot of other things, and for sure, especially when it comes to weight gain, there are other things that present like this. So, you can't just chalk up these symptoms entirely to perimenopause. The first thing you have to do is rule out other things that are really common in midlife, like thyroid issues, nutritional deficiencies. So I do a whole panel just looking at everyone's vitamin D, their B12, iron levels. But specifically the weight part of this picture is complex, and that is not always just related to estrogen and hormones. That's absolutely related to insulin, and lifestyle and nutrition definitely impact it. So, you have to sort of tease things apart, but nutrition and lifestyle absolutely impact weight gain in addition to hormones.
I want to jump not off topic. I think it's quite important to touch on one specific part of this, which is when you were in med school, were you taught anything about nutrition added as a proper class, a proper, were you taught anything about nutrition in med school?
I don't recall any nutrition classes, and I would say at the most, maybe we had like an hour or two in 4 years of medical school, which is crazy because so much of what women die of later in life is preventable. And, as a healthcare the healthcare, institution, we tend to intervene when things are already present and things are on the later stages of sickness instead of working to prevent, which most things, especially the things that women tend to get sick of later in life, are preventable. So that's actually why after my training a year ago, I decided to get my board in lifestyle medicine because I wanted a better foundation in terms of, helping women, having a better foundation of understanding nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, and health, because it so impacts your midlife. And what I've realized in studying this is that this is an incredible window of opportunity, your mid 30s to your 50s, where you can prevent so many things that women die of in their 60s. I think a lot of women, busy with careers, kids, families, and it's really easy to put our health on the back burner when you're in your late 30s and early 40s. And it's certainly too, if you're feeling dismissed by the healthcare, your healthcare provider, no one's really guiding you, but because so many people need something of us, when we're in our midlife. But as I was studying, I realized that this is an incredible opportunity to prevent disease. It's not too late. It's not too late at all. Your body has incredible regenerative capacities to reverse disease in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. It becomes more difficult in your 60s because at that point, those disease processes have already begun or are there. But I really want women to know, it's not too late. Even if you're someone who has never really liked to exercise, even if you're someone who's like, what's the point? I've never been someone who's really active. Actually, studies show that the people who are the sort of least fit gain the most benefit in just starting to exercise. So let's say someone who, had a sedentary lifestyle, they've never really liked to exercise. The official medical recommendations are 150 minutes of moderate vigorous activity a week. But you gain so much health benefits even before you reach that goal of 150 minutes a week. So for women that are I'm overwhelmed, I'm you can literally, it's bite-sized things. Consistency is key, and your health, even if you don't see it from the outside, little by little from the inside out, you're improving your health with just a tiny bit of exercise every day.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're really touching on this because it's quite important. I mean, I talk quite often about how we're not finding help from the professionals because the professionals just simply don't know in many ways, which sucks to say because you spend all this money, all these years in med school, expecting that they're going to teach us, and then you end up not knowing, and then maybe clinically giving advice to people on other things completely when you can be incorporating lifestyle medicine, things like training, things like nutrition to kind of change gear. So I love your work because I know how much you make it a point to continuously grow and learn and be really, really qualified in a full rounded, to have a 360 angle on everything, which is quite important. So let's touch on lifestyle medicine a little bit. I've always been an advocate of training, and I think training changes your life, especially if muscle changes your life. You're the organ of longevity, as a lot of people put it these days, and it prevents so many things from happening in future, from injuries to osteoporosis to all of these things, and let alone keeping your body intact. But I came to realize more so recently than before that I always knew that nutrition complements everything, but just how important what you're eating is to dictate whether you're going to be maintaining your weight, keeping stubborn fat, or losing weight. And there's a process to it. It's a whole process of how you're supposed to get rid of your old fat, why insulin is working the way it does. What have we been feeding ourselves for the longest time possible that has really triggered a lot of fat blockages in our body and insulin receptors not working. So basically our fat storage is I'm not getting rid of this. I'm keeping it because I need to feel like I'm in survival mode now. You've been giving me the wrong food this whole time. And now I'm kind of okay, I need to hold on to this fat storage because it's my diamond right now. It's my gem. I can't get rid of it. And fat is supposed to be good for us, right? It's there for our brain cognitively. It's there for our memory. It's there for our pregnancy. So our body loves fat. And the reason why a lot of women are storing onto fat is I started to believe it's not stubborn fat. It's not because you're just born this way or genetics in many, many ways, minus the exceptions. But I think the general rule is it's nutrition combined with training, and it's not training first. I think it's nutrition first. What do you think about that?
Yes, nutrition is so important, and it does impact, your insulin level. Insulin is really important. I don't look at weight loss or weight gain from a calories perspective because the type of food you're putting in your body is so important, and it affects your hormones. Absolutely. Not only does it directly infect insulin, and whether good or bad, you're making yourself more or less insulin resistance. And by the way, like, that's also impacted by muscle density. But as we age, we lose muscle mass every year. And so that makes us a little insulin resistant. We also, just from chronic, the typical standard American diet of processed food, you're basically insulin resistance means that your insulin is not as effective anymore. You need more insulin. Your cells are so used to elevated levels of insulin, which insulin's job is to store fat. And if we're constantly giving ourselves refined carbohydrates or sugar or processed food, your insulin levels are going to be high all the time, which means you're constantly storing fat. And if they're high all the time, the receptors on the cells just don't respond as well to it. It's like when you get used to something, and so you need more and more insulin. But the problem with that is you cannot lose weight if your insulin is elevated. It's just impossible. You can't store fat and also lose fat. So, and I still am trying to figure out which one is more important. I think you're right about nutrition being probably the key component, but they're so complementary and so important in terms of your overall health and longevity. But for sure, nutrition is like 75% of it.
Yeah, I would say if I'm talking about nutrition, it's not for maintenance per se. I think if you have no weight loss goal, definitely it's muscle beats it, right? But if you have a weight loss goal, there's no amount of training you can possibly do to push you to lose weight if you're not watching your food.
Most people, absolutely.
That's what I mean. Like I know this not only from, I know this from myself. You know how much I train. I lift heavy weights. I could train for 2 hours a day at times in my life. Now I dropped it down to 4 times a week, 1 hour each. So it's like the average person trains that much. But I realized that there was no amount of additional cardio or additional strain I need to put on my body for me to lose weight. The only factor that was determinant of whether I was losing weight or not is what I was eating while I was training. And another discovery I've discovered on myself as well is that when you're working your muscle, when you're lifting heavy, which is the ideal thing to do so that you have that muscle strength, right? But when you're lifting heavy, you've woken up your muscle already. Your muscle's awake. So what you're feeding your muscle when it's awake is really going to be prominent in terms of whether it's going to bulk your muscle or whether it's going to, allow you to shed your fat and be lean. And if you choose to lift heavy and wake up your muscle, you have to really be careful about what you're feeding yourself, because it's so much easier to feed yourself crap when you're not working your muscle, because your muscle's kind of asleep still. So even if you have a chocolate here and there, or you eat carbs here and there, you realize a lot of girls say, yeah, but I eat whatever I want and I'm lean and I'm thin, but I don't train. And the minute I train, I become bulky. The only reason they're becoming bulky is because they're feeding their muscle that's already awake crap. So then your muscle here is kind of like, okay, let me pump now, let me build. It's like you're going through a bulk phase in the gym. So I think it's really important to know how to pair what kind of training you're doing with what you're eating, which, by the way, brings me... Yeah, tell me.
Oh, no, it's just that you can't out-train a bad diet.
You can't out-train a bad diet. That's so true. And you can, you could eat well and train very little and lose weight, but you can't train heavy and eat whatever you want and lose weight. I think by all means, food beats everything in that sense. If you're after a weight loss journey, that's absolutely a discovery that I've made. But listen, about insulin, for people that don't understand how insulin works and why it's storing your fat, I mean, what is the damage that people have been doing over the past 10, 15, 20 years? What Big Pharma has been telling us, what all the big food industries have been telling us about what's actually good and what is not. Do you have your take on that? Like, what is the biggest disappointment that you have witnessed yourself about what we actually thought was good for us, and what has really triggered our insulin receptors not to be working anymore?
I think it's definitely confusing, and I don't blame anyone for not understanding what healthy food is, because we do promote these sort of health foods that really are not health foods. I mean, one of the things I really don't love are protein bars, honestly, or a lot of sort of packaged to go things, because even if they're marketed as healthy protein bars, a lot of them have preservatives, a lot of sugar. You know, it's not real food basically. Like if it's in a package, and you know, if it's in a package or in a bag, it's often not real food. And so you have to just sort of think like, how were my ancestors eating basically, you know? The less processed, the more clean food, the better, because those actually, and you know, I think we also should explain to people when we say eat healthy, like we all know, okay, eat your veggies, but why? Well, it's really incredible that vegetables and whole foods have so many powerful antioxidants and nutrients that improve from at the cellular level your health, and you can literally reverse oxidative damage to your brain, to your skin, just by eating vegetables. So, you know, I do believe in a balanced diet, but vegetables and the different colors of food. So we always say, like in lifestyle medicine, you know, have a colorful plate, because the different colors of vegetables and food represent different nutritional potential, or different nutritional different nutrients that are so important for different functions of your body. So I think, you know, I'm not a huge fan of bars. I'm not a huge fan of sort of packaged health food. And of course, there's a role here and there. Of course, every, you know, now and then I have a bar, but I try to really keep it simple. And I don't like to keep track of food. I don't like to, you know, overthink it. So I sometimes tell my patients, if they don't want to record or log their food, like just try to cover your plate with at least half of like different variety or color of vegetables, and then the rest, you know, protein, or a little bit of like 25% of like a starch or something, but prioritize variety of vegetables and protein basically.
I was reading somewhere that they said Great Depression food was there's this cook, I forgot her name. She's really old, and she was from the Great Depression, and she creates recipes online on YouTube called Food from the Great Depression. And if you notice the things that she's putting on her plate, everything that they were feeding them in the Great Depression were grains, starch, potato, everything from the ground, roots, anything that was cheap so that they can get by. And she always says a slogan which that said, the Great Depression food got us all fat. So she says it as a joke, obviously, but it just comes to show that it was a functional food. And I think this is going to be a touchy subject for a lot of people, because I've come to realize and learn that our bodies are consistent of, you know, your minerals and your fat, your water, which consists basically primarily of almost everything. And then we have 1% carb in our body, 1%. And everybody is so damn concerned if they're not consuming their carbs. Like, why don't you have rice on your plate? What about my potato? But really and truly, if we're talking about your body's needs, if you have about 25, 30% fat and minerals, your body needs fat and minerals.
Yeah.
If you're talking about 70% water, your body needs water, and your muscle is your biggest organ, so you need protein. But do we really need carbs, or is carb a luxury that we could use for energy, that we could use for better performance in our training? But if you're really on a fat loss journey, I've come to believe that you can function very well on fat and on protein, and you can get carbs from your vegetables, because evidently carbs are in vegetables, but you don't need it from starchy carbs. What is your thought?
I agree. So you do need, your body uses glucose as energy. So you need glucose. Carbs are a very easy way to get glucose, because they're simple. They break in your bloodstream, they break apart, or in your stomach, they break apart as glucose. And it's sort of a quick, fast way to give yourself glucose. But you technically can get glucose from protein breaking down, and from vegetables, carbs in the form of vegetables, like you said. So, and the reality is, the average person who is not training the way you are, by the way, Tracy, does not need, you need some, especially long-term, I would say, you do need carbs. For weight loss, I agree. I think for weight loss, it's much easier to basically put yourself in ketogenesis and use your own body stored fat that's already there as fuel. You don't actually, eating carbs is going to slow down your weight loss journey. But, and the average person doesn't need probably to consume the amount of refined carbohydrates that they are. Carbohydrates are best obtained in vegetables or fruit, ideally. But for weight loss, it's true. Like the more fruit, and even fruit is great, but it does have sugar in it, and as fructose, it will slow down your weight loss goals. So a lot of people are scared of fat, and there's a lot of us who believe sort of you eat fat to get skinny, actually, because it forces you to stay in ketosis basically and not use up, if you're feeding yourself glucose in the form of carbs, then you're going to use that and anything excess you're going to start storing as fat again. So you're kind of in this cycle where you can't lose weight because you're giving yourself the sort of the easy glucose that your body wants. But if you slow that down or really cut down refined starches, then it forces your body to use its own stored fat as energy.
I'm exactly on the same wavelength as you. When you're consuming glucose, you're burning that glucose in the gym or as energy, right? You put in the carbs, you're going to burn the carbs. And if you're on a maintenance, that's totally fine. I mean, you have your rice, you burn it exactly in the gym, and that's totally fine. But when we're talking about weight loss, and this is what I want a lot of women to kind of look into, when you really look at what your diet is and really kind of look inwards, understand what your body is, what you're feeding yourself, truly look into your food and be mindful of what you're consuming. Are you really eating the right stuff? And then you can honestly say you have stubborn fat, you're unable to lose weight, it's impossible for your body. I honestly believe 9 out of 10 times, unless there's a specific medical case, most people can lose weight just fine. The average human diet will thrive on animal products, on animal fat, and vegetables and fruit. You can thrive on food like that. I don't think everything else that's being introduced in our system right now, like when you're having a granola bowl in the morning or oats and all of this stuff that is actually poison for your body. Like oats is has zero nutritional value. And it's totally fine to consume it if you want to, if you don't have a weight loss goal. But if you have a weight loss goal and you're having oats every morning, that's your reason for your body to kind of say, no, I'm not ready to burn off the current fat that I have because I'm still getting all this glucose that I could use and burn. It's so much easier to burn this quick access glucose than it is for me to go into my fat cells and burn old fat that has been hanging out there for quite some time.
Yeah. And simple things that can help, that are sort of lifestyle medicine tricks that are they sound so silly, but after time they can help. So when I have patients who, one thing is always eating everything in a certain order. So you want to start with like protein, fat, and eat the carbs last, because that slows down the insulin spike and slows down the big glucose rush and insulin spike in your blood. So I try to do that, regularly. And then always having a fat with the carb or sweet. So like, for instance, I have a patient who has this habit of having, a small candy bar in the afternoon. And she was like, how am I going to kick that habit? I'll just stop entirely. And I said, no, it'll be too hard. Don't try to kick it entirely. But what I want you to do is have a handful of walnuts before you eat that candy bar. And those walnuts, that fat is going to slow down the glucose spike. It's going to fill you up a little bit more. And before you know it, you're going to crave the chocolate less and less. So we always say sort of never eat like a dessert or a cookie alone, always eat a healthy fat right before it or with it, because that sort of slows down the glucose spike and the insulin spike. And then your sort of quick fat storage that's going to happen.
Unfortunately, a lot of us were eating fruits on an empty stomach for the longest time, thinking that that's how we're supposed to have fruit. A lot of us used to, have a dessert in the morning on an empty stomach. Imagine how crazy your insulin goes for the rest of the day because you started your day with something sweet.
Exactly. So what happens is if you start your day with like a sweet, like a pastry or granola or oats, like you said, I'm in agreement, that really jumps your sugar a lot. And it spikes your sugar, your insulin spikes, and then about an hour and a half later, you have that it falls again, and that's when you get hangry. And honestly, since I've been incorporating a lot more healthy fats in my life, like avocados, olive oil, I never get hangry anymore. Like fat is really important for satiety. I think a lot of us, especially who grew up in the 80s and 90s, like we were scared of fat, like be skinny, fat is bad. But actually, fat is so important for maintaining stable insulin levels, and not having these crazy insulin spikes. I really don't remember. I used to get hangry all the time. And when you have that sort of, if you get hangry, there's no way that you'll have enough willpower to eat healthy. Like if you have that hangry feeling, forget about it. Like you will eat whatever's in front of you. And I don't blame you for doing that, because you can't fight your instinct if you're hangry. So what I try to tell patients is the more healthy fat you incorporate. I mean, I think avocado is the biggest superfood because it has a lot of fiber, which is really important for women, and a lot of healthy fat. And so I'm always eat that first in the morning, eat the protein, and then have a little bit of the oatmeal if you want. Or add, anyway. So yes, healthy fat in every meal.
I think butter is a superfood. How afraid we used to be of butter. And now butter is my go-to. You have no idea how much butter I add on my food. You have no idea how much animal fat I eat. I choose the ribeye over the tenderloin. And evidently, when I was first very afraid to take this route, evidently I realized just how much leaner I got while I ate more fat, ironically speaking. I got so much leaner by increasing my protein and my fat than I ever did by going on this pyramid diet or a balanced diet and trying to fight my hangry instincts. Because when you're not really feeding yourself the right foods, you will get hangry, exactly what you said. And what I want women to kind of realize is that when you're really solely counting on willpower and your discipline, and it's a mental fight every single day, forget about it. There's no way in the world you're going to be able to sustain. I've been through a cycle myself of binging when I get access to something sweet, because I went so long on a really restrictive diet of no fat, no salt, all these things that actually help your body, who's very intelligent. Your body's smart. Your body knows what it needs. And when you tell your body, I got everything I need, your body is actually not going to be craving anymore. It's not a fight anymore. It's not a mental battle. You just need to understand and learn what your body really needs. And when I discovered it, I kind of felt like, oh my God, I need to tell everybody. How did I not know this? How was I eating wrong this whole time? And more importantly, going back to how we feel as women and our hormones and everything, I feel like I have an internal balance. I don't know the medical term for it or anything, but cognitively, I'm sharper. I feel centered. My nails, my hair, everything is harder now. I have, everything kind of works well, homogeneously. And I'm not in a fight. I'm not in a constant fight with food anymore, which is quite important to me.
Well, the cleaner you eat and the less processed food you eat, the less inflammation you have in your body. So what you're saying makes sense. And inflammation is basically your your immune response to some kind of foreign thing, whether it be processed food, preservatives, neuroendocrine disruptors, so sort of like the chemicals in the things we put on our skin and stuff. So we were never exposed to these type of things thousands of years ago. And so our body's not really evolved fast enough to recognize these things. And so you have this sort of inflammation. Now, inflammation can be important if you have a cut on your finger and your immune cell, it gets red and warm and your immune cells are sort of working on that. But if you have this low-lying chronic inflammation in your body, you feel less clear-headed, you feel tired, you feel, you don't have as much energy. So what you're saying, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. And if there is, I kind of want to touch on your thoughts on hormones and how they're related as well. So what is the biggest issue that women come to you with when it comes to their hormones? And what advice do you have for them to kind of be able to maneuver through it without feeling like they're crazy, without feeling like, I mean, it's easy to label what you're feeling. Like, oh man, you're crazy. Women are crazy. But like, I feel like if you're mindful of how you're feeling or what is happening, you know how to manage it much better. So what advice can you give women when they're feeling like they're going into their crazy era, as people like to put it?
So I think it's important to have these conversations, and thank you, because the more we talk about this, the more even just recognizing that there is a biological explanation for what they're feeling can be validating. It's not in women's heads. So, one of the first things that women come seek me out, like I said, is sometimes just the interrupted sleep, the lack of energy, and sometimes irregular cycles, but not always. But I would say most of the time it's bad sleep and brain fog and decreased energy. Now that can present as many things, so I ruled the other things out first. But often if they fit the age group and everything else is normal, we can make a clinical diagnosis of perimenopause. And so basically, I explain to them progesterone and estrogen, we think of them as reproductive hormones, and yes, they're important for fertility and pregnancy, but they're so important for so many other things. We have them all over our brains, our joints, our muscles. So when estrogen and progesterone start to decrease, and testosterone too, by the way, testosterone is not just a male hormone. Women have testosterone. We actually have higher levels of testosterone than estrogen in our bodies. And so when I explain to them that estrogen and progesterone are important for sleep and mood, I would say the other really common thing that women come to me for is all of a sudden they've been mentally very, resilient and stable, and now they're just have much more anxiety. They're lashing out at their families. They are not themselves. The classic thing is, I just don't feel like myself. And estrogen and progesterone are involved in these brain pathways. So the net effect of estrogen is to increase serotonin levels. Serotonin, if people may recognize it, and antidepressants are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So antidepressants increase serotonin. They're important for mood. And so as estrogen decreases, women that are susceptible to this can have more anxiety, more depression as their estrogen is decreasing. Progesterone is involved in this GABA pathway in our brain, which helps in sleep and has an anti-anxiety effect as well. And so as progesterone starts to be decreased less by the ovaries, you get a little bit more anxiety, and women start to feel more anxious and more irritated. And then they're having this interrupted sleep. Body composition. So testosterone is important for energy and muscle density and body composition. So and actually one of the things that slows down the decline of testosterone in women is resistance training and sleep. But as testosterone decreases in women, they have different changes in their muscle density, their body composition, and a lot less energy. So I actually, I supplement women. I prescribe for them, even women in their late 30s to early 40s, low doses of testosterone or estrogen and progesterone if I think that it is a hormonal sort of reason for why they're feeling these things. And if it is a hormonal reason, they will feel much better. I mean, it's really incredible. They will, in a couple of months, feel much more like themselves, be much more mentally resilient, and have less anxiety. I've had patients who've been able to get off of their antidepressants and be on low doses of estrogen and progesterone for their mental health. And the thing is, there's less side effects with hormones. And in my opinion, hormones are natural because the hormones that I give are bioidentical hormones. So they're made to look exactly like the hormones that your body has been used to. We're just sort of giving you back a little bit of what you've been used to, that your brain, your bones, your heart needs. And so it's very different than sort of giving someone a birth control pill to manage their period or whatever. That tends to be like a really common thing that providers will do, but it's not the best solution in my mind for this type of thing.
And what do you think about women who take medication to delay their period or to delay their menopause, for that matter?
You mean like hormone therapy, or what kind of medication?
I don't know what it's called, but like some women, when they're reaching menopause, they keep pushing it through some pill or medication so that they can delay. Is it the birth control? So that they can delay menopause. Like women in their 50s take it so they can continue to get their period. What are your thoughts
Oh,
on that? And
right.
what is it exactly?
Okay, so I think you're talking about some women will just continue a birth control pill through menopause and they'll still get their period. It works for some women. It's not my favorite solution because a birth control pill has very high levels of hormones and they're synthetic hormones. They're not, your brain doesn't recognize it as like the natural estrogen that it's been used to. So there was, when we talk about hormones are sort of chemical messengers. You have a hormone and it talks to your cells in your body, and then the cell does something downstream. So it's like we call it a chemical messenger. The birth control pill estrogens are synthetic, and for some women, they might feel better on that. But I find that often, if I have women who are on a birth control pill and they will still be having hot flashes, they'll still have brain fog. A birth control pill will definitely decrease your testosterone, and I'm a big proponent of women having adequate levels of testosterone. So I don't love the birth control pill, but for some women it works for them. They like it. The caveat with giving hormone therapy to younger women in their 40s who are not feeling like themselves is that it doesn't provide birth control or contraception, with women in their 40s usually still need. So that's why often doctors are really quick to give a birth control pill. The birth control pill will regulate your cycle, your period, but it's not always gonna help with the other stuff. And usually it's the other stuff that really impacts a woman's quality of life, being anxious,
Yeah.
having a short fuse, not feeling clear-headed, feeling a lot of fatigue, not being able to get out of bed, or not sleeping well. I mean, sleep is so important for health. It's like how your brain like gets rid of toxins during your sleep. Your sleep primes you for the next day. If you're not sleeping well, your cortisol is going to be high the next morning, and you're definitely not going to be able to lose weight if you're not sleeping. So if I have a woman who comes to me and she's like, I can't lose weight, I have brain fog, I'm not sleeping, I have no libido, I have no energy. I'm like, okay. There's a lot we're gonna figure out here, but the very first thing we're gonna do is we gotta get you sleeping again. Sleep is so important. So I try to work on that first and then address the other things. Because if you're not sleeping, I can't ask you to do resistance training every day and eat really healthy. Like if you have chronic sleepless nights, like you feel awful. It's bad for your mental health. It's bad for your your insulin and your cortisol levels. So I try to hone in on that first. But I think I didn't even answer your question. So let me say,
No, you know what? I'm so glad that you're getting into all of this. This is amazing for me because it's so true about sleep. I think you cannot perform. Your memory sucks when you're not sleeping properly. You can't think straight. You become aggressive and anxious and all of these things. And most people
yeah,
actually boast by saying, "Yeah, I don't need more than 4 or 5 hours of
right,
sleep." It's not cool
right,
not to need
right.
not to sleep more than
I
4 or 5
agree.
hours. You have to sleep, men and women, not just women. And you mentioned something about those pills that women are taking, and I guess they revert to the I didn't know there were birth control pills. That's actually news for me. So thanks
Think
for
that's
bringing that
what.
to my attention, maybe. But if that was birth control pills that they're taking at that age, and I guess most of the time they're choosing to take those pills because they're trying to get rid of all the menopause symptoms
Right.
that's actually worrying them, which you mentioned, like lack of sleep and the hot flashes. And I don't think they care so much to continue to get their period as much as they care to prevent those symptoms. So if they
Right.
choose not to take that pill and they are going through menopause, through the work that you're doing and what you've mentioned about like the testosterone and all those things that they could possibly take that's natural, they can manage all of these symptoms while they're going through menopause.
Yes, so those symptoms are much improved, and it's not just, yeah, so I give, bioidentical hormone therapy, whether it be through a patch or a spray or a pill, and so again, it's sort of natural in the sense that it looks exactly like the same estrogen progesterone that you've been used to having earlier, and if it is a hormonal component from why they're feeling these things, their brain fog will go away, their sleep will improve, their hot flashes and night sweats will go away, their energy increases. I've had patients who just on testosterone alone will just say, I feel so much better. I feel I have much more energy. I have a lot more motivation and sort of I'm excited to get up and do things during the day. There's, in the US, there's a lot of fear of hormones because in 2002, there was a big study by the NIH called the WHI, and there was a lot of problems. There was a lot of politics. They basically incorrectly associated breast cancer risk with hormones, and that was debunked 2 years later. And there have been many clinical trials which have shown that this is not true, but that it sort of left a generation of doctors scared of hormone therapy. Women in the 90s and 2000s were told, or in the 2000s were told to get off their hormone therapy. And so it's really taken like 20 years of the medical establishment moves at such a slow pace. And so we know now that hormone therapy is actually very safe, that it's very important for preventing the things that, women die of. For me, I think it is sort of the key to longevity. The things that women die of later in life are cardiovascular disease, number one, which is preventable with diet, lifestyle, and by the way, estrogen. Estrogen is very cardioprotective. Women have lower rates of cardiovascular disease than men until they go through menopause, at which point it increases above that of a man's, because estrogen is really important for heart. When you lose that estrogen, your cholesterol goes up, your bad cholesterol goes up, your good cholesterol goes down. So, and then osteoporosis. So, being able to have strong muscles and bones. If a woman goes through menopause and is not on hormone therapy, about 50% of women will have some kind of osteoporotic fracture. 50% once they're postmenopausal. And if they have a fall and they fracture their hip, Tracy, they have a 30 to 50% mortality rate after they break their hip. I mean, that's crazy. And this is preventable. This is preventable with lifestyle, with muscle. This is, I'm starting to use like a weighted vest now, like when I go on walks. And I've, as you know, I'm new to the game. You're so far ahead of realizing the importance of resistance training. But I learned nothing about the value of resistance training in medical school. And only until I started researching this for my own, because of lifestyle medicine and my interest in preventing disease, was I like, how have we been not telling women they have to build muscle? This is the key to longevity. It's not like an expensive elixir or a $10,000 like gadget in your house. It's really the work. You have to put in the work with the resistance training and muscle. Building muscle helps your metabolic health and helps you never be able to maintain independence. If you fall, you can get up by yourself again. I mean, what's the point? Women are living longer, but what's the point if we can't live independently and have high quality of lives? We want to be able to act independently. We don't want it's about our health span. So increasing the age at which we live is fine, but we really want to increase our health span, which means we want to increase high quality of years at the end of our lives, where we're not 100%. Dependent on anyone else. And so, estrogen, especially for my women that have a high, family history is really important. Osteoporosis is very influenced by genes. And so, for them doing estrogen therapy, we know that estrogen helps prevent osteoporosis. In addition to using a weighted vest, in addition to resistance training and nutrition, all of that stuff we're going to talk, we talk about in my practice. And then to cardiovascular disease, and then even Alzheimer's. I mean, this is still a bit controversial, but dementia and Alzheimer's, there's an amazing expert, Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who runs the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic in New York City at, I think, NYU or Cornell. And she came out with this book, The XX Brain. And she also, by the way, has another book you probably like called Brain Food, and also The Menopause Brain. And her whole life's research has been shown that the reason why the majority of Alzheimer's and dementia patients are women are because they go through menopause, and estrogen is really important and anti-inflammatory in the brain. So, that's still a little bit controversial. But what's not controversial is that estrogen prevents osteoporosis and it prevents cardiovascular disease, in addition to lifestyle, right? Like, I'm not going to just say, take a hormone and don't do the work. You have to do the work too, but they all are part of the picture.
Yeah, I think anything worth having will require back-end work and is earned, and it's not bought. So you can buy all the Ozempic you want, you can buy all the diet pills you want, you can buy all the liposuction you want. That's not going to give you longevity. That's not going to give you a prominent, optimal health when you're 60. The only thing that's going to give you that is the right food you're putting in your body and resistance training, working your muscles so that it's protecting you as you grow older. And the fact that both of us, you as the expert and me as just discovering and curious about, but in only in my own way. I mean, not because I have a degree, but because I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I read as much as I can. And I really encourage people to do that for themselves. And I think it's difficult, especially in this world of social media, to say something that is so unfamiliar to somebody because they've been told something else completely. And instead of being curious enough to understand or unlearn, they would rather fight you on something that they don't understand. That's not possible. Or how is that? No, it's not. I don't need to do weight training. That's totally fine. I can just do cardio. Or I don't know, food, something about food. Like, how are you saying that fat is good? No, it's not. It's terrible for you. I'd rather stick to my granola bar. I mean, it's just important that we're all learning here. We're all growing. And there's nothing more exciting than to understand, to finally get it, to finally learn. So that's why I always encourage people to keep that open mind, to keep unlearning and to say, I don't know, I thought something else before, and it's okay to let go of that thought and learn something new now,
Absolutely. Well, one of the reasons I sort of came through this is my own experience of having a really hard time. I gained a lot of weight in my pregnancies. I couldn't slow the weight down. I definitely believe weight gain is complex in terms of genetics, lifestyle, family history, social determinants of health, what your types of food you're surrounded with. But I couldn't slow the weight gain down. And I tried, and I was doing extreme cardio, running, maybe not to some people it's not a lot, but for me, 5 miles a day, the severe caloric restriction, obsessing over what I was eating, and I could not budge the scale. And I was like, this is crazy. I obviously don't understand this. And all the advice that doctors have been giving to patients is terrible. Eat less and work out more is the worst advice. It's not working for me. And I apologize to any patient who I've ever told, but I don't actually ever think I told patients that, because I think innately I was like, if that worked, we wouldn't have the rates of obesity that we have. So anyway, I remember thinking, if I can't figure this out for myself, how am I going to help patients? And so I started reading and doing a lot more in terms of sort of understanding insulin, gluconeogenesis, understanding weight, how you store fat, how you lose fat. And to your point, I started doing a lot more healthy fat and protein, and excuse me, and minimizing the processed food, not being restrictive with what I eat, adding some butter. At that time, I was doing a little bit more like sort of ketosis or paleo diet. And it was the only thing that ended up helping me lose weight. I mean, it took a while, but it was the only thing that worked for me. I didn't lose much weight doing any kind of restrictive diet or like high intense. And now I understand why.
Back to what you just said. I mean, I feel like you're preaching to the choir. My blood's like boiling with what you're saying. I'm like, I felt the exact same thing. I never talked about nutrition as much as I did about weight training and resistance training, because I understood the value in muscle, and I know why I'm pushing for it. I'm not asking women to care about a six-pack. I'm not asking women to care about gap thighs. I never talk about that. All I care about is women realizing the importance of being strong and independent when you're growing older. And that's what I push for. It's a long-term plan. It's a think big plan. And when it came to nutrition, because I was so yo-yo in my diets, and because I went on really restrictive diets, which mind you, they work. If I go on a calorie deficit, it's math. I'm going to lose weight, but I will put all the weight back on. If it's not in 3 weeks, it's in 1 month. If it's not in 1 month, it's in 2 months, because your body is just not, it's in stress mode when you take it to such an extreme, when you're counting your calories to the T without including the right nutrition that will help you not crave, right? So when I really found out and I wouldn't give people advice on nutrition. I would just say the bare minimum, because I knew the bare minimum. So I think with experts, when they're giving their opinion, that's why I don't go to nutritionists. I mean, I've been to nutritionists back and forth. I've been to doctors back and forth, and I don't like what I hear, because I hear, it's okay if you have, I've been on meal plans where I'm given a cheese sandwich for my breakfast or a peanut butter sandwich for my breakfast. Why the hell are you giving me a peanut butter sandwich for my breakfast on a meal plan when my goal is weight loss? You should know better, and you shouldn't be putting the calorie intake on my meal plan. You should be putting my macros in my meal plan. That is the most important thing. That is the thing that's going to make you not have to count calories, because your body is doing its job. I mean, if we're looking at our ancestors, they're not counting calories when they were consuming, when they were hunting food, and when they were gathering their fruits and stuff. But if you think logically of what they were consuming, every once in a while they would come across a fruit tree, and then they would gobble all the fruit they can have. They weren't having fruits after every lunch, breakfast, and dinner. So sugar should not be consumed in that capacity.
And
they weren't
it wasn't
having
juice.
sandwiches.
It was real fruit with fiber.
It was real
that slowed.
fruit.
It wasn't just orange juice. You know, you were eating
And
the
it
fruit
wasn't
with the
granola
fiber.
bars.
Right. It wasn't granola bars. Well, the problem is there's so many corporations that influence, unfortunately, you know, like the I totally agree with you. I hate the pyramid diet thing, or what is it? The pyramid food group thing. Like, it's so dumb. It's the worst. But there's so many corporations that benefit off of feeding us,
Lying
at least
to
I can
us.
speak for the US, lying to us and telling us, you know, they make so much money off of processed food, and especially these big industrial food companies and corporations that can actually influence a lot of the medical associations, unfortunately, in the US. Even, you know, I'm not always in agreement with what the, you know, even like the American Diabetes Association says. Like, I don't always agree with them. Even what we agree on, you and I, in terms of eating more animal protein, especially for weight loss, is still controversial in medicine, you know. And I'm not saying you need to be in ketosis forever and ever, but the reality is it does work for weight loss, and it makes sense from a biological standpoint. And I have found that, as you were kind of said too, like you can be a little bit more flexible when you're maintaining, especially as you build that muscle, because as you build muscle, you become more metabolically healthy and metabolically flexible, in the sense that you can eat more carbs or more pasta a little bit if you've built that muscle and you've built sort of your health from the inside out. But to lose weight, it's going to be very difficult if your insulin is high. And what the things that create insulin, that make insulin go up, are carbs, processed food, sweets, and the things that really don't make insulin go up are fat primarily, and then a little bit less so protein.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on, really. And when I want people to really be listening carefully. Don't pick and choose and be selective with what we're talking about. When we're talking about cutting carbs or starch is not great, we're talking about for the purpose of weight loss. It does not mean that we're saying forever and ever don't have a protein bar forever and ever.
Right.
I mean, I have an ice cream business. I don't care. I'll have ice cream, but I won't have it when I'm on a fat loss journey. And I'll choose to balance it and not have it every day when I'm on my maintenance journey. But we cannot not understand what we're putting in our body and then blame our hormones or blame random things for us not losing weight or genetics, but when in fact it's because we're just not educated enough. And again, it's not to anybody's fault. I wasn't educated enough either. I feel so bad for how people are being fed a lie. Like, for example, the study that showed that there were years and years and years of funding put behind vilifying butter and vilifying animal products so that they could go sell their canola oils in supermarket shelves that cost them jack shit, and that's basically poison for you when you're cooking it. But that's why they had to spend years grooming a society that butter is bad for you so that they could sell their canola oil off the shelves, along with tons and tons of other things. And I believe including animal products. I mean, if animal products are bad for us, then how the hell did humankind get here for all these years? We got here on animal products and on vegetables. So that's a different argument. I mean, whether you're on the vegan side, whether you're on the carnivore side, whether you're ancestral, whatever it is, the idea is that more and more people are starting to talk about the importance of whole food. And as long as it's a whole food, let's just be in agreement on that. Like, let's not eat garbage anymore and Impossible Burger and anything that has a label of like 50 nasty products on it. If it has one or two ingredients, go for it if it makes you feel good, you know?
Right, I agree. I am a fan. I do like animal products. And it's still controversial. Even in lifestyle medicine, a lot of physicians are vegan. But, you know, so whatever someone feels good in on a diet, they should do. But I personally feel better if I do eat animal products. And, you know, I kind of went from eating them all the time and only animal products to now eat a little bit more balanced. I realized the benefit of incorporating more colorful vegetables. So I primarily try to focus on animal proteins, fish and vegetables, kind of like a Mediterranean diet, honestly. But yeah, I personally am a fan, and that's still a little bit, debate. That is a lot debated, actually. That is a hot topic in medicine, but I think diet can be individualized, but I agree. What's not really individualized is eating whole foods. Like, that's good for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a couple of more questions because we're going to have to wrap up soon. But the first thing is women in their 40s and 50s tend to feel dismissed a lot. And why do you think that is?
I think, number one, I think society doesn't, I think we put so much importance and value on a woman's reproductive capacity when she's fertile and can have babies. And then after she's done having kids, we're like, okay, whatever,
She's
come
old
back
news.
whenever. She's old news. And our lives, we're not defined by our reproductive capabilities. Our lives are just as important and valuable before, during, after having kids, whether we're able to have kids or not. So I think as a society that's present, where we dismiss women, where there's a lot of ageism. I'm a big believer in embracing aging and looking at it as a gift because we're alive, and trying to advocate for ourselves so that we can have good quality of lives. I also think the medical industry has done a disservice to women. Most of medical research dollars, the vast majority, have been dedicated to fertility and pregnancy. There's very little on women after having kids, midlife, sleep, perimenopause, menopause. Just recently in the US, we've secured $100 million to research midlife now, but now back, if you look at allocated research dollars, it's about 0.01% of research dollars are put towards women, non-pregnant women's health. Like nothing, like absolutely no one has put priority in that. And I think it's difficult for women to advocate for themselves when they go to their doctor. And consequently, by the way, unfortunately, many providers are just not educated on how to help women in midlife, And so I have realized, like, I can empower women and give them all this information, but if they go to their own doctor and their own doctor's like, you don't need hormones, you're only 40, or you, whatever it is, if their own doctor doesn't understand this and doesn't understand what they're going through, then they're going to feel dismissed and be like, it's in my head. So I'm actually working on potentially creating like a digital platform to, educate physicians and patients alike, because it's important. I want to empower women, of course. I'm so passionate about that, but it's important that the medical professionals get up to date and realize that this is a really, women in their 40s, they're a powerful group. We're more confident, we're asking questions. I think this generation of women are, not just taking no for an answer. We want to understand our bodies. We want to understand what we're going through, and we deserve to. Like, our quality of life is important. We place so much importance in a man's quality of life. We didn't even touch on the subject of sexual health, but that's another thing that I talk about and I'm passionate about, because I do believe that that aspect of women gets dismissed a lot and ignored, and we sort of ignore issues that women are having with that. And that's an important part of health and longevity as well. But I think it comes from many things: society, the medical industry, and providers not being educated. So the more we have these conversations, though, the more that it will force healthcare providers to understand and be able to answer questions that women are asking them.
And I think at the end of the day, women end up dismissing themselves unconsciously at that age when they're being treated this way across the board. It almost feels like, but they'll actually take a backseat and say, but now it's not my time anymore. Now I have to raise the kids, or it's not about me. I can let myself go. When I was younger, I used to be. Now I don't need to be. And that language, it starts with us. That language should stop. The language should really be embracing who we are as we grow older. I feel much more centered and confident and good in my skin now that I'm growing older. But I think the only reason that works for some women and not others is because I have made the conscious choice to take care of my body, to take care of my mind, to take care of my health, and to continue to grow and elevate. If you choose not to, and you're putting yourself in the back seat, when you're growing older, it's just going to work the complete opposite. You're going to feel more insecure. You're going to feel older. You're going to feel dismissed. And in turn, the society dismisses that behavior, in other words, So I think we should also start taking charge of ourselves and making changes so that when we see ourselves in a certain light, everybody else will follow accordingly.
Absolutely. And again, for women to know, your 40s and 50s are so crucial for setting up how the rest of your life is going to look. This is so important. It's not too late. Your body responds so beautifully to lifestyle changes at this decade. Don't ignore it. It doesn't matter. It's not too late. And prioritizing yourself, your mental health, your physical health, nutrition, lifestyle has positive effects on those around you. It's not selfish. It actually, the more you prioritize yourself, your health, your mental health, and lifestyle, which they go hand in hand. I mean, being outside, exercising, eating healthy absolutely impacts your mental health in a positive way. That has a ripple effect on your family, your kids, your partners, and your friends. And so I think
And you're leading by example for your kids and your partner as well, which
Absolutely.
is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love this
Absolutely.
conversation. I can go on and on. It's so nice talking to you about it.
So nice talking to you, Tracy.
Thank you so much for your time. And
My
just to
pleasure.
wrap
Thank
up,
you.
what they don't tell us, I would have asked that earlier, but I didn't. But I think you just mentioned, if there's one thing that we should have known before, what do they don't tell us?
It's not in your head. There are biological reasons to explain why you don't always feel like yourself, and there are treatment solutions for that. But it's
And
not
how
in
can
your
people
head.
reach you?
You can find me on Instagram, Alicia Robbins MD. I'm also at theelmgreenwich.com. And I'm hopefully launching a podcast as well, where we'll be covering all these things in a few months, although I keep putting it off because of work, but we're going to get there. We're getting closer. So yeah. Thank you so much.
Amazing. And can people call you for virtual consultations?
Yes, reach out to me on my website. It has my email on there. Actually, you can email me directly. And so I look forward to, we can, I look forward to having any inquiries.
I love it. Thank you
so much for
your
having
time.
me.
Thank you.
Bye.